She chose not to be here.
Judge, can you hear me? Oh, okay.
Judge Lyman abruptly stormed out of the courtroom today, visibly shaken after yet another accuser delivered a bombshell testimony against Blake Lively. According to the latest revelations, Lively's lifestyle brands were allegedly peddling dangerously, cheap products that may have been harming consumers, a far cry from the luxury image they projected. And disturbingly, this appears to be only the beginning. What was meant to be a straightforward harassment case has spiraled into an uncontrollable storm of scandals, and the judge has clearly had enough. The legal saga began as a single workplace harassment complaint, routine for Hollywood if such a thing exists. But almost immediately, the case began to mutate. Set to go to trial in 2026, it was initially framed as a simple dispute between a powerful actress and a former employee. Instead, it has unraveled into a sprawling legal odyssey marked by new lawsuits, secret recordings, buried evidence, and damning allegations that extend far beyond the original claim. What once looked like a typical celebrity courtroom battle has become something much darker, a tangled web that threatens to expose every facet of Blake Lively's empire. And then there's her career. How did something that seemed so straightforward unravel with such terrifying speed, and what does it mean for the future of Hollywood's most carefully curated icons? At first, the case appeared to revolve around a single moment, one inappropriate comment, one harassment claim. But as the legal proceedings inched forward, new allegations began erupting from every direction, transforming what was once a private HR dispute into a public reckoning. The court's decision to fast-track the process stunned both the legal community and the entertainment industry. It quickly became clear that Blake Lively wasn't facing a lone accuser. She was up against a wave of individuals, each carrying unsettling stories from deep inside her professional orbit. As the case accelerated, the pre-hearing phase that had originally been months away was suddenly upon them. Lawyers on both sides scrambled to keep up as the courtroom became a revolving door of testimonies, emergency motions, and leaked documents. But more than anything, there was a growing sense that the real trial wasn't just legal. It was public, cultural, and existential. Blake Lively's glossy image, so meticulously maintained over the years, was now being dismantled piece by piece. With each new allegation, it became harder to argue this was just a misunderstanding. This wasn't about one comment anymore. It was about something much deeper and far more dangerous. This was no longer a misunderstanding. It had evolved into a complex, high-stakes legal showdown, one with the power to permanently reshape how the public sees Blake Lively. And the question loomed, how much further could it go before everything finally collapsed? Judge Lyman, already strained from weeks of mounting legal chaos, began to show cracks. By the fourth day of hearings, what was supposed to be a routine procedural session had exploded into a whirlwind of revelations. New accusations, shocking in both tone and detail, painted an increasingly grim portrait of Lively's behavior. The courtroom was no longer a venue for justice. It had become a pressure cooker of emotional turmoil, and the judge, once calm and composed, was visibly unraveling. His demeanor shifted from stern authority to barely contained exasperation. The weight of the proceedings grew heavier with each testimony, each explosive claim more salacious than the last. The air in the courtroom changed, thick with anticipation, unease, and something close to disbelief. What began as a search for legal clarity had transformed into live theater, with Lively at its tragic center, her once unshakable reputation unraveling in real time. No one present could deny it. The tension was suffocating. With each passing hour, the courtroom descended deeper into chaos as more damaging revelations surfaced. The pressure was mounting, not just on Blake Lively, but on the entire legal system tasked with holding the case together. By the fourth day, everything changed. Testimonies stacked one after another, accusations intensified, and then came a twist no one could have anticipated. A revelation so explosive it threatened to shatter even the most loyal public support for Lively. As a former employee took the stand, details about Blake's personal conduct began to emerge. revealing a version of her starkly at odds with the polished, effortless persona she had built over years in the spotlight. What began as a narrow, legal dispute had now ballooned into something far more sinister. Sexual harassment was no longer the sole focus. The narrative expanded into abuse, exploitation, and a disturbing pattern of behavior tied to Blake's meteoric rise to fame. The courtroom, now packed with reporters and onlookers, sat in stunned silence as one damning account followed another. Could Blake Lively withstand the firestorm now engulfing her career? The media frenzy intensified, and the heart of the case shifted yet again, no longer about a single incident, but about the dismantling of a public figure's entire legacy. The first whistleblower, choosing to remain anonymous, approached the witness stand with a quiet but steady resolve. What they revealed would echo far beyond courtroom walls. This former employee described a toxic and degrading work environment, allegedly overseen by both Blake and her mother, Elaine Lively. What began as a complaint about unfair working conditions quickly morphed into a chilling account of psychological abuse and, at times, physical intimidation. According to the testimony, the Liveleys maintained an oppressive grip over their staff, using manipulation, humiliation, and ethically murky demands as standard operating procedure. These weren't the ventings of a disgruntled employee. They were serious allegations backed by emotion and specificity. One witness described being assigned tasks that crossed clear moral boundaries, suggesting a deep-seated culture of control within Lively's professional empire. More former staffers soon followed, each with their own disturbing recollections. Some spoke of repeated verbal abuse. Others described being berated for their appearance, publicly shamed over minor mistakes, or pushed into demeaning assignments with no justification. One former assistant recounted being mocked by Blake in front of colleagues, a deliberate act, they claimed, meant to assert dominance. The image of Blake Lively as America's sweetheart was unraveling fast, replaced by something far more ruthless and calculating. Many of the accounts shared in court painted a disturbing picture of daily life inside Blake Lively's professional empire. An environment defined not by collaboration or creativity, but by fear. Employees described being assigned menial, degrading tasks with no consideration for their well-being. The most harrowing detail wasn't the workload itself, but the constant anxiety, a culture where even the smallest mistake could cost someone their job. It wasn't simply about errors. It was about survival in a workplace where personal boundaries were regularly violated and humiliation came from the top down. What does it say about a brand, or the people behind it, when fear becomes the norm? But then came the most explosive allegation yet, a claim involving Blake Lively's alleged misconduct toward a young male employee. According to his testimony, he was just 20 years old when he became the target of Blake's inappropriate attention. He described a series of deeply unsettling interactions, unwanted advances, lewd comments about his body, and physical contact that crossed professional and personal lines. The behavior wasn't flirtatious or ambiguous, he said. It was aggressive. One moment stood out. Blake allegedly mocked his appearance, then touched his private areas under the guise of a joke. A humiliating experience, he said, was meant to assert her power, not express interest. This wasn't a harmless misunderstanding. It was a calculated act of dominance. As more people stepped forward, the extent of the damage became undeniable. Once loyal employees began speaking out, revealing a workplace built on manipulation and coercion. Favoritism was rampant, and those who tried to maintain integrity were either pushed out or forced into silence. One former staffer revealed they were pressured into covering up serious lapses, including product safety failures and violations of regulatory standards. Elaine Lively, Blake's mother, was frequently named as the architect behind many of these choices. According to testimonies, she pushed employees to cut corners and bury problems in order to protect the brand's pristine image, no matter the ethical or legal cost. The deeper the court delved, the more it exposed not just a troubled workplace, but a culture of systemic exploitation masked by glamour. The questions became bigger than Blake Lively herself. How far does this network of manipulation go? How much of Hollywood operates behind similar facades? And how long has behavior like this been protected by fame? As these stories gained traction, public perception of Blake Lively began to collapse. Once hailed as a model of poise and integrity, a fashion icon, philanthropist, and role model, she was now the face of a much darker narrative. No longer just a celebrity caught in a scandal, she had become emblematic of a system that enables abuse in the name of profit. Her image, carefully built over years with wholesome branding and curated interviews, suddenly rang hollow. What was once seen as authenticity now looked like artifice. And in the eyes of the public, Blake Lively's fall from grace had only just begun. As the courtroom testimony uncovered darker truths about Blake Lively's business practices and personal behavior, one question lingered over the entire proceedings. Could she ever recover from this public unraveling, or had her legacy already been permanently stained? The fallout wasn't limited to media speculation. Legal consequences were swiftly taking shape. Blake's legal team, alongside her mother Elaine's, immediately went on the offensive, aiming to discredit whistleblowers and cast doubt on the integrity of their claims. But the allegations were too detailed, too credible. Even seasoned, lawyers struggled to dismiss them outright. What had started as a single claim of harassment was now evolving into something much broader, a systematic indictment of an entire business culture allegedly built on fear, manipulation, and abuse. The pressure was mounting, and the once confident legal team was clearly beginning to buckle. This was no longer just about Blake's actions. It was about the environment she and her family had cultivated, one that appeared to prioritize profit and control over ethics or humanity. A legal firestorm was brewing, and for the Lively's, the storm showed no signs of letting up. The initial sexual harassment claims were just the beginning, a spark that set off a series of explosive revelations. What began as a solitary complaint quickly escalated into a torrent of accusations, spanning everything from abusive leadership to violations of workplace safety. On social media, the court of public opinion erupted. Platforms like Twitter and Instagram became hotbeds of debate. Some die-hard fans rallied to Blake's defense, citing media manipulation and unproven allegations.